Hello, and we're live on a hectic Monday morning. So it's actually afternoon, isn't it, as well? So I've got a new saying: after morning. After morning is my new saying that we learned on Friday from a delegate on one of my LinkedIn workshops. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about Facebook groups. Now I have got a guest joining me, Paula. As you can see, she's not here yet. She's coming, she's joining us. She's just got held up in a meeting. So she's going to tell us all about Facebook groups, okay? In fact, she's just joining now. The last minute. So I'll let her in a minute. We'll give her a chance to compose herself. But basically, if you're watching on YouTube, please do give this video a thumbs up. And make sure you subscribe to my channel for lots of hints and tips and advice on social media. Join me live every Monday at 12:30. And again, if you're watching on Facebook, please do click on the StreamYard link if you're going to ask any questions, because then I'll know exactly who it is. So let me just add, I'm just going to add Paula into the stream because she's here. Yeah.
Hello. I've just noticed, in typical fashion, it's always the way, isn't it? Because I'm dashing a little bit late. But for some reason, StreamYard doesn't want to pick up my webcam. So I've had to reorganise the desk. So I'm on my laptop cam, which is a little bit blurry. And I've just noticed I've left my cupboard door open behind me. So that looks a bit random.
It all adds. It all adds to the good.
Now sat at the door as well, so any minute now the cat will probably howl because she'd like to leave the room. But other than that, seamless.
Oh, bring the cat in. She can talk about all our chat from Facebook groups. So so today we're live by the skin of our teeth. So thanks for joining us, Paula. So Paula is a business growth coach, and she also runs a very successful Facebook group as well. So I thought it'd be really fitting to invite Paula onto the live stream today, and she can share some of her top tips about Facebook groups. So do you want to give yourselves an introduction then, Paula?
Yes. So you have touched on it already. So yeah, I'm a business growth coach. I have been doing this actually for just over 12 years. So my background, I've got a corporate background in banking. I've also got a background in sport and competitive athletics. So it kind of all combines together to give me, I guess, a really sort of interesting all-around knowledge of business and mindset and things like that. So yeah, I quite often help people with things like pricing, with understanding their ideal customer, with just getting clarity on where they really want to take their business. Because I think most of us have got no shortage of ideas, but it's that understanding which is the right idea and then having the time and the attention to really focus on it, I think is often the biggest challenge. So
yeah. And I was interested actually because I've been to some of Paula's workshops and had a bit of coaching, which is really good to find out all about your sporting background as well, which is pretty fabulous.
And it's fascinating, really. I think when I first started out in this business, it never really crossed my mind that the sport had anything to do with it. Obviously, there's sports coaching and business coaching, so that bit's a bit obvious. But just things like focus and accepting feedback and having a great squad, and also understanding that you can't do everything yourself. And that if you're constantly exhausted, then actually you're not going to perform very well, either in sport or in business. So there's loads of tie-ins, actually, which is really fascinating.
Yeah. And so what made you launch your group then? I know you're going to talk to us a bit about groups today, but tell us a little bit more about your Facebook group.
Yeah, so it's been running for a smidge over 2 years now. So it started off in the January. And I think, as with many of us, it was a classic case of probably spending about 6 months debating whether to do it or not, and then eventually kind of going, stop faffing about, just get on and bite the bullet. And I suppose a couple of different reasons, and you'll tell me off for one of them. Because one of them is the easy answer that says it's a little bit harder than we'd like it to be to get the same level of interaction on Facebook pages. So that was one of the reasons that I was seeing a group as a much easier way to build engagement, but also the fact that community is actually one of my values. And I love putting hints and tips and stuff like that out onto social media. But I also really, I think this is one of my sport elements, really, that knowing in my sport that my squad was massively important to me, and having that supportive group around me. And I think sometimes in business it can feel quite lonely and isolated. You've got a million things running around in your head a lot of the time, and sometimes it's hard to work out who to talk to. Friends and family, if they're not in business, they don't always get it, because we're a peculiar bunch with peculiar challenges. So I very much saw the group as that opportunity to create a bit of a safe space for people in business, where you can come and ask your daft questions. I can share hints and tips and advice, but also other people can as well. So, people like you, Bex, for instance, are very welcome to come in and share your great content, all of which showcases you, but helps the people in the group as well. So I just saw it very much as a real sort of cheesy line, but a real kind of win-win option.
Yeah. And I think what you said earlier as well, with regards to groups and Facebook pages, Facebook does favour groups at the moment.
Yeah.
It will give more love to groups. If you go live in a group, then your followers will say, hello, yes. And you'll give them a little notification. Whereas if you go live on your Facebook group, not necessarily. So you do at the moment. And again, it won't last forever, because Facebook loves to change those little algorithms. But groups certainly get a bit more visibility, don't they?
It also feels a little bit to me like they're just a bit more fun. They are naturally a bit more sociable, because it's not people necessarily just commenting on your stuff. It's a bit easier to just start a conversation and, I don't know, ask some random questions and occasionally some stupid ones.
That's it. And just for people who aren't really clear what the difference is between a Facebook page and a Facebook group, a Facebook page is basically, it's a bit like your own web page. So you have full control of that.
Yeah.
So you have full control of your Facebook page, whereas a group is much more like a community forum. So anyone can post in the group. So it's much more fitting, isn't it, for developing that.
It's a bit like if you think about networking, then a page is almost like that's your 60 seconds at networking, where a group is the whole networking event kind of thing. It's the mingling and it's the socializing, and plus your 60 seconds or whatever is incorporated within that. So it's just the bit more all round. There is that element, as you say, that you do have less control. I mean, obviously you can put lots of rules and regulations in it. It's not really my bag. But you are open to other people commenting and other people joining in. You're much more likely to get other people who are competitors, who want to come in and try and steal all the work you've done.
Oh, that's an interesting one. Have you had that? Yeah.
I get a little bit of it. I think it happens in every group. I tell you what, one thing that I think is quite fascinating about groups is I think there's a lot of people that don't make the connection that a group has always been created by a person. So you see things like Northwest Small Business, or you see UK Business Networking, or things like that. And I think people don't understand that that's always been created by one person. So they kind of go, oh, that's a business group, and that's a whole group full of my ideal clients, so I can come in and share my stuff. And occasionally people don't sort of check, well, actually, who created the group? Who is it that's put all the donkey work into building it? And I think you have to accept that will happen. You will get some competitors that come in and try and steal your turf. To be honest, I've actually found that the best thing to do is allow them their space. And generally speaking, they just run out of steam, because what actually tends to happen is that your group members, they're offended on your behalf. You don't really have to do anything or say anything, but the group members are almost a bit like, you do realise this is Paula's group, but this is Beck's group, don't you? And you just tend to find that those competitors might come in and they just won't get the engagement at all. And then sooner or later, they just fizzle. So you can actually maintain the higher moral ground. You don't really have to do much about it.
No.
And you still just look fabulous all along. So.
And that's the sign of a good community, isn't it? You've built this community, you've got this relationship with everyone in the group. So what made you decide? Because your group's a public group, isn't it, Paula?
It's a private group, actually.
Oh, is it private now? Right, okay. So what made you decide between public and private? Because within groups, you've got three options, haven't you? You've got unlisted, which is just a group you can create and no one will ever find it, but apart from those people you invite. You've then got a public group that anyone can join, or
Yeah.
you've got a private group where people have to request to be let in, don't you?
Yeah, so the biggest difference for me between public and private is that a private group means that the content isn't visible to anybody outside the group. You have to actually join the group to be able to see any of the posts in there. So if you're on the hunt for new groups yourself, then that's probably what you'll find. The way you'll look at some groups and you'll be able to see everything in there, and then other groups you can't see any of the posts. It'll tell you how many posts there typically are, but none of them are actually visible. And it was the members that asked me to make it private. So I think I definitely started off with it public. And I don't know, within a space of about 4 weeks, there were a couple of members that kind of said, I'm a bit nervous that, some of my customers might be able to see some of the things that I'm saying in here. And if I want to, ask a stupid question, or if I want to say I've been having a bad day or something like that, or rant about a customer, I'd hate for them to see it.
Yeah.
I made the group private as a result of that, just to give those members that added little bit of confidence and security that unless you're a member, nobody else can see what's in there.
And I think that's a really important point, because you do get a lot of public groups and people tend to join them, and there's not that much management of those groups. So you end up with a lot of groups that businesses join and then you just promote the stuff.
Yeah.
Just do all the sales stuff.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
all people see is people trying to sell stuff, and people switch off, don't they? Because it's of no value at all. So what's your tips for keeping a group engaged with interesting stuff?
Well, I think actually, if I can touch on what you just talked about there, I'm not quite answering your question, so you might have to bring me back to your question.
Yeah.
But you talked there about how open a group is and inviting people in. And the public-private thing, it perhaps means that less people will join, but it's more likely to be the right people. And what else was I going to say then? There was something else I was going to say about joining. Oh, yes, that's what I was going to say. I've been quite careful with my group in terms of not starting the group and then spreading the message absolutely everywhere. I wanted it to kind of grow that little bit slowly but surely. So it very much wasn't for me about as many people in there. That's Siri just joining.
What do you think, Siri?
It wasn't about growing it as fast as possible. It's never been about how many people can I get in my group so I can then sell them all my stuff.
Yeah.
It is very much, I want it to be a genuine community that feels like real value. So I think that's my first tip, is don't panic about numbers and feeling like it's got to have loads and loads of members. The crazy thing is, a lot of the groups you see that have got thousands and thousands of members are often the ones that are least active, the least engaged, and the most full of spam.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my first tip, is don't panic about numbers. I think in terms of content's a really interesting one. I think one of the first challenges that you probably face with a new group in particular is getting your members to actually add posts. It's quite often very hard work up front, in that everything's coming from you. And I think everybody just sort of almost sits by and watches, and they're trying to work out what they can post and what's allowed and what's over the limits and things like that. And I think you have to be prepared to put that work in initially for you to create that content and start to build that momentum before the members will start to just naturally post their own stuff. I think in terms of content, I don't think there's a hard and fast rule, in all honesty. I dare say you can talk to all sorts of different people who'll say to you, just post once a day and that's plenty, compared to other people that are saying post every hour and make it really, really engaged. I think the simple answer is to build it around what's reasonable and realistic for you. I certainly know people who have gone a bit all in on groups, and they love it and they get really excited and they love that feedback. And there can be you can really get a buzz from a group, because it's almost like, this is my space and people want to be here. And it does feel a positive thing. You get quite a good bit of positive feedback about that. There's my cat howling. But equally, what I've seen is lots of people get really swept along by that sort of positivity and excitement, and they're posting in there 4, 5, 6 times a day. And then about a month down the line, they go, oh my God, I feel like, how am I ever going to keep this up? So I think it's important, as with all social media, I'm sure this is one of your classic pieces of advice, Bex, is that consistency is more important than sort of going all in. So just be realistic about what's the right level of content for you. So I tend to work on 2 pieces of content a day, and I generally go with one that I think is just a sort of dead easy question to answer, just to, you know, get the engagement flowing a little bit and make it an easy place for people to hang out. I don't go as easy as what colour do you like your cup of tea, or what colour do you like your slice of toast. I try to make them at least vaguely businessy, but, you know, a question like, what's your favourite social media platform? How many emails are in your inbox at the moment? That's always a fun one.
Yeah.
What's your favourite CRM system? So they're businessy questions, but they're dead easy. And I think it's always a fascination when you look at posts like that and you think, am I giving enough value? Is this an important enough post? But social media is social, and I know this is one of the things you always talk about, Bex, that this is a social place. So encouraging conversation is definitely not a bad thing. So I always tend to go with a kind of easy question in the morning, and then I go with a sort of deeper, more thought-provoking, hopefully, question or post in the afternoon. So my afternoon posts are very much business hints, business tips. Have you thought about this? You know, have you got a sales process in place? Do you know how much it costs to run your business every month? And then giving people a few tips like that. So they will naturally get less engagement. But they do tend to be the posts which people will talk to me about later. So they're the ones where people might read, observe, take it in, but they don't necessarily want to actually get involved in the conversation with it. So I think there's a real element of understanding that not every post is about engagement. I'm just going to let this
just get the cat out. No, I think that's really important. And I'm talking about sizes of groups as well. You know, I've got my lovely people who we've got Jonathan and Jeanette and Amanda today, and another Facebook user. You'll have to leave your name because you're not who are watching through my group. So we are live streaming at the moment on YouTube, but also with my group. My group's a very small group compared to yours, because my group's completely private. You either pay to join my group, or it's, if you've been a client of mine, if you've been on one of my workshops, you get free access. So basically,
and you're proud.
Yeah. So basically, people can, you know, ask questions in a private setting. You know, ask daft questions. People always go, "Oh, it's such a daft question." I was like, no question is daft when it comes to social media. So. And I tend to post, like you said, with consistency, which is interesting, because consistency I'm going to be talking about on next Monday's live stream, and why it's so important. You're absolutely right. If you commit to 2 posts a day, you've got to keep that up.
Yeah.
I can't commit to that much. So I tend to do my live stream on a Monday, and then I'll probably do maybe another 3 posts during the week. Yeah. So my group is certainly not as active as your group, but it's kind of there as a support structure if people need it.
Yeah, I think you've also hit on something really key there as well, Bex, is understanding the purpose of your group, because I think sometimes what happens is we hear all the, oh my God, my page is a disaster, I get no engagement on my page. And I think particularly over the last couple of years, maybe 3 years even, there's been this huge surge towards groups rather than pages. But I think lots of people go into that without a thought in place about, well, why are you creating a group, and what are you going to offer to people, and why would somebody want to hang out there? Because the fact that there's been such a surge means that there are a heck of a lot of groups to choose from. So why would somebody come and hang out in yours? And how does this fit with you and your business in the long term anyway? And I think sometimes people are just sort of get swept up. It's a bit like most things on social media. It's the new big thing, you know, right? Everyone's saying, everyone's launching a group, so let's all launch a group. And then you get a few months in kind of thinking, I'm not sure why I've done this. I'm not sure what my plan is. I'm not sure how to monetize it. I'm not sure how it fits with my strategy. And I just seem to be spending a lot of time doing it. So understanding why you're creating your group, who it's for, what it's going to offer, and how it fits with you and your business strategy as a whole as well is really key.
It is really important. I think you've hit on something really well, because your group is so different to your page. Your page is there potentially, yes, to sell, but also, you know, to add value. But your group is definitely not there to sell, unless you've got a product. Like I've seen some brilliant in lockdown shops creating groups where
Ah,
they've been showcasing their products and
yeah,
they're, clothes, modeling them and having a bit of fun and having raffles and things like that. That's worked really well.
yeah,
But again, you really have to have a clear strategy. If you just want to go in there and just go, I'm going to create a group so I can sell to these people,
yeah.
it's not going to work, is it?
Yeah, that's so true. 'Cause I have seen some people, and obviously you get the Bob invited you to join this group, and then you go and have a quick look at it, and it is just sales post, sales post, sales post by the host of the group, and you think that is literally somebody who's heard that groups get more engagement than pages, so I'll just do exactly what I was doing on my page, and now just do it as a group. But yeah, a group is not about you. Now, obviously, ideally, it's got to be about you somewhere down the line, or it's not really a great business strategy. So it has to be in some way about you, but it can't just be a sales tool, because people just will lose interest in that in a flash.
Yeah, yeah. And interestingly as well, obviously we can join groups as an individual, can't we?
Mhm.
Or as a business. And the person that manages that group can decide whether
Yeah.
you want individual or business. So how do you manage your group with regards to that?
I don't allow pages to join my group. I did to start with, and I found that there were a couple of key things with it. I found that actually pages who joined tended to be a bit more salesy, so they were more likely to just put sales posts in and not really get engaged. But what I also found, the key thing is it's very difficult to get social with a page. So, if you've got Bob's Cleaning Services or whoever, or I don't know, Northwich Cleaning Services, for instance, you don't know who you're talking to. So, with that element of a group being naturally quite social, it feels quite awkward to be having that conversation with a business name rather than with an individual. So I swapped mine
Yeah.
after a few months to just allowing individuals. And I think, see, my business page is actually Paula at Taylory, so it's still a bit obvious that it's me, and that probably wouldn't be a terrible one to join a group with. But if your page name doesn't have a personal name to it, it's near impossible to build a proper connection. So it's not
Yeah.
not a strategy I would encourage.
No. And also, if there are a few page admins, it could be any one of different people who could be
Yeah,
connected in
that's
your
true.
group. You've got no control. You don't know how many people actually now have access to your group.
Yeah.
So no, it's an interesting one. I don't let the businesses join my page. But there's a few that do. And it's a great strategy if you're going to add value to groups rather than just going in and trying to sell your wares. If you're truly going to add value, then absolutely try and join groups as your business page, but only if you really are going to add value and not try and get
I think,
sell
the
your
other
stuff.
thing with that, actually, because somebody posted in my group recently and posted, I'm not sure whether it's as a page or whether it's one of those where they have a personal profile that's got an impersonal name, but they posted up a question and got a few responses, but they finished off the post with their name. So even though it was a business name that made the post, they put their own name at the bottom of it, so you still felt like you were talking to a person. And I think
Yeah.
perhaps they did that meant that it got a lot more engagement. So there is an element of trying to make sure that you're still being personal, even if you're representing your business.
Yeah. And that's really important, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's social media. It's about being sociable.
It is, yes.
People. Yeah.
You also touched on something really key there as well about adding value. And I have to confess, I think so many people miss an opportunity here, in that option to find groups that fit really well with you and that are full of your ideal client, but where you're not a direct competitor with the group owner. There are so many opportunities to add value, share your stuff, drop in hints and tips, post in a vlog or a blog or anything like that. And so few people do it. It's a massively untapped area, I think. And I think people could really generate a lot of interest for themselves by finding the right groups and adding loads of value. And the crazy thing is, if you do that, the group owner will absolutely love you. People that come into my group and share good stuff, they're totally ace because they're enhancing my group. So I love that stuff. And they're exactly the type of people who, when I know they've got a promotion on, for instance, I'd say to them, make sure you drop that in the group. And you also get that interesting dilemma where you've got members of your group who hardly ever, if ever, engage with anything, and then they just come in and drop a sales post and just post and run, and it always gets zero engagement. I'm always fascinated by how many other groups they're dropping the same bomb into. But if they just spent that little bit of time building connections with people in the group, engaging that little bit more, dropping in that value, then actually when they put those sales posts in, they'll get attention. There are real opportunities as a group member as well as a group host to really build good stuff through groups.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Now, if you've got any questions about groups, please do put them in the chat. And again, if you're watching this after it's live, do put them in the chat because we'll come back to it. I'm just going to dig out your group, actually, Paula, because what I'm going to do is we'll share a link to it in the chat so people can check it out.
That's a good plan.
Okay. So how, if people need a bit of help, then how do they get in touch with you, Paula?
Well, funny enough, my group obviously is one of the easiest areas to come and find me. That is, my group is my primary place, funnily enough, to share value. So of all the social media platforms that I'm involved with, the group is kind of the place for all my golden nuggets. So yeah, you're very welcome to come and join the group. You could also, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm quite regular on LinkedIn. You could even go crazy and drop me an email. One of those sort of special ancient things. So yeah, I can I drop my contact details in here afterwards? Comments.
Yeah, and there's your website.
Yes.
There you go.
Oh, you're good, Bex. Look at you dropping in all the details.
I'm prepared.
Yeah, the website is mid-overhaul. Actually, we're a month or two away from a new website. So yeah, looking forward to that as well.
But yeah, so if anyone needs help with Paula, I do highly recommend Paula's services. Her group is great, but also her coaching is really good. And if you're thinking about creating a Facebook group, then I do have a workshop coming up as well in April. So I'll drop the link into there, and it's all on Zoom. We do an hour a day over 4 days, and we basically help you create a group in the right way, because as you know, Paul, there's an awful lot of settings when it comes to groups, aren't there?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think another little tip actually I'd give, or almost a two-handed tip, is I've only very recently added entry questions onto my group, and I had always said to start with that I want it to be a group without rules and be very sort of free and flexible, but just asking people to kind of behave themselves. And there's a welcome video that I always point people to, which does say you are welcome to sell here, because actually I do think there's too many groups where you're not allowed to sell at all. And I think, well, we're in business, we all need to be selling. But I've added questions on only over the last couple of weeks, just because I'm just rebalancing it. There's just a sprinkling of people that are getting a bit spammy, so they're starting to find themselves moved out, but just getting a bit more specific on who joins. But as my sort of question 3, I have included the classic, would you like my free download about how to demonstrate your value? And what I found so far is that about 1 in 5 people are saying yes, please. So at that point, they're all signing up for your mailing list. So there's a good little opportunity there to be ticking along if you've got a mailing list, to be getting new people onto that with very little effort involved in it as well. So that's a quite nice way to help it in terms of your general strategy and stuff.
Yeah, no, that's a great tip. Well, just a reminder then, this is Paula's group. And if you are watching on YouTube, please do give this a thumbs up. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Do subscribe to my channel. I'm live every Monday, 12:30. Next week, we are talking about the importance of consistency on social media, why it is so important.
I think it's one of the most important things in every area of business. Consistency is just massive.
Yeah, no, it is. So we'll be talking about that. So feel free to join us, everyone, with your questions. Again, if you're watching this live, after the live event, please do post any questions and we'll happily answer them. And thank you, everybody, for watching today. And thank you so much, Paula.
Thank you for inviting me, Bex. It's been a pleasure. And I'm sorry I was a bit seat of the pants getting here.
Oh, don't worry. No, it's great. Right, well, thank you, everybody. And we'll see you all again next week. Thanks, guys. Bye.